Okay, welcome back, guys, to a new episode of this podcast. In today's episode, we're just going to quickly talk about something that we come across literally every single day and that you probably come across literally every single day as well. And that is basically being too subjective, because most people are not really rational in their daily lives, which, you can't really complain too much. I mean, being rational and objective all the time is pretty fucking hard. But still, even when the time is needed and you should actually be somewhat rational and objective, people just fail to do so, and it genuinely makes their lives worse. And yeah, also in debates and everything, it's just it's a problem not only on like a micro level, but even a macro level with like politicians and everything. So yeah, in this episode, we're just gonna quickly talk about this. So Finn, you've seen an interesting video on
Yes.
on this. Go ahead. What did you see, bro?
This video was about a discussion between jacked people and fat people. And what I saw as a bystander, so someone that wasn't involved in all this, so I could look at this from a rational point of view. And in these kind of discussions, it's always or most often about opinions against opinions. It's not really about straight facts against straight facts, but people always mix in their own view and not really argument objectively. And one thing I still remember, it was about attractiveness between fat people and attractive people. And I think it was about if jacked people are more attractive than fat people. And their arguments were often that they experience it differently and that in their lives it is differently. They have a happy life, a happy marriage, kids, and stuff like that. But this doesn't involve the whole population. It's only their own reality, how they see everything, and it's not about straight facts. Because as a straight fact, it's just that more jacked people are more attractive than fat people. It's something in our subconscious that we see things like this. And I mean, often it's not a beautiful reality or a nice reality, but just because it's not a nice reality doesn't make it a not existent reality.
Yeah,
This reality still exists.
100%. I think this is extremely important, and I think Hormozy said something similar in the sense of facts do not care about your feelings. And if I'm correct,
Yes.
if I'm quoting this correctly here, but this is so true, and it's hard, it's brutal. Like you kind of have to develop a mindset where you kind of see reality as it is, like be a hyper realistic about such things. And I think most people, in a weird way, are like this already. For example, if let's say you don't want to go to the gym and you kind of come up with all these excuses which sound somewhat rational and somewhat logical, but deep down you still know, well, you could actually go right now and you should. And I feel like there's this feeling of discontent, this like negative emotion that you often have when it comes to certain decisions, or when you're trying to cope because of a certain thing. If you should have to do something, or you would have to do this one thing and you just don't, this like negative emotion clearly indicates that you're not living up to the facts right now. You're not being real.
Sincere.
You're not being realistic. Yeah, sincere. Exactly. And I think I feel like this is a skill, actually, like a life skill, to move through reality with this like objective outlook on things and kind of act in accordance to that objective reality. And I think this is extremely brutal, extremely hard, because, for example, if you've been fat your whole life, it's very hard to lose fat. But the fat person definitely knows that being fat is not necessarily healthy, and it doesn't necessarily help them with being, for example, attractive, which is something you definitely want to be in life. Like being attractive is a good. So Yeah, I think this is a skill actually, and a very very tough one. I think everybody fails to succeed in
Mhm.
that field from time to time. I most certainly do.
Yeah,
So
so overall, I think it's just being aware.
yeah,
Doesn't mean that we are aware of our surroundings and stuff like that, but also aware of our thoughts and the the things we think are our objective thoughts, but kinda our subjective thoughts because our emotions are involved.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's impossible to constantly think about this stuff and constantly be aware of your own thoughts, and these thoughts then kinda impact you in your behavior and your other thoughts then. And it's something you should be aware of to be aware
Yeah,
and constantly remind yourself of, because if you constantly remind yourself of this, of being aware,
yeah,
you, over a long period of time, you are getting more aware than before. You're getting more awarer.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
And this does this stacks and helps you in being more objective about the reality.
It's a long process for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
As I said, it's kind of like a skill to learn, where it's like you instantly recognize the facts and the reality,
Hmm.
and then realize that your emotions or your subjective opinion is not in line with that, and
Hmm.
you should actually act out the reality and the facts, and not your emotions.
Hmm.
I think something two things that help you with this, or that can actually help, is having other people, and not like a very good friend is very strong for this. A friend which you're not being offended by, like you clearly kind of can make this agreement. Hey, look, I will tell you if you're doing bullshit, and you kind of have to objectively, then we can objectively argue about this, right? And I think
Mm.
with a good friend, this is very strong. But your friendship has to be on a certain level. That's for sure. And oftentimes, it may even be smarter to argue with somebody that has the complete opposite point of view, and then you can really see who, if you can get to certain truths together, or if you stay in your position, then like objectively rationally, then that means that you're probably more right, that you're closer to the truth. However, I think another thing you could do is, for example, yourself trying, for example, like opening a Word document and having and challenging your beliefs, kind of,
Mm.
by writing for the other point of view, and kind of arguing against your beliefs, and then seeing if you can keep them up, if you can actually destroy your own beliefs, kind of. And this is something I think you told me, which is a very very strong, in my opinion, a very strong thing to do.
Yeah, just journaling your thoughts and
Hmm.
your values and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's this one quote I really like. It's "All is as thinking makes it so,"
Hmm. Hmm.
and it just means that the way we perceive things around us
Hmm.
depends on how we think about the things we see around
Yeah.
us. So there can be two types of persons that see
Yeah.
the exact same situation but
Exactly.
think completely different about them because
Yeah.
they have different judgment about different people and thus perceive the situation completely different.
Yeah.
And the thing you talked about before with having friends and stuff like that, I think that's extremely important
Hmm.
because even if you try to be aware, it's still hard because your emotions are still involved, especially in the beginning. And to have somebody different than you looking at the things you do and then making objective feedback because they are not actively involved is, I think, extremely important and helpful.
Yeah.
And you should also be aware to maybe not always be this objective or to always state your opinions on things.
Yeah. Sure.
it kind of plays into social intelligence. And if you're in a group working on a project, and this group has a overall set of values and way of thinking, and now you come into this group and say, oh, this is bullshit, it's not really the objective reality, you're just emotional about things, then it kind of gets messy, and you won't achieve the things you would normally have achieved if the group was in synergy. And just being aware of this, that you sometimes have to accept the opinion from the other people to get forward.
Yeah, you don't always have to challenge another point of view if you don't think it's correct. It's like also when it comes to making friends, you know, if you encounter somebody for the first time, then you're not there to argue with them on certain things or beliefs. It's more like if you really want to be friends with somebody, then it's kind of like in the beginning you just mirror their beliefs and everything, you know. So kind of you I think it's I think knowing or getting as close to the truth as possible has the most benefit for yourself in the end. And so you don't have to like state it to others or something, like their lives, you know. It's just that you for yourself want to come as close to the truth as possible and act it out as good as possible, as well as possible. But you don't, and it's, I think there are rare situations where you should try to argue or truly like state your full beliefs. I think there's not that many situations in which you should do them. You should be socially fluent and kind of adapt to other people most of the time. I think that's strong, but you shouldn't then automatically take on their point of views or their beliefs or their values. You should, in the back of your mind, just know, okay, that is wrong in my opinion, but I won't necessarily state that right now or argue with that person. It's just that you know what's right, you know what's true, and you kind of keep it to yourself. I think it's
you kind of adapt the mask to fit into these groups. And the problem also with arguing about realities and beliefs is that most people aren't aware of these things and think that they're in the right and are emotionally involved. And now if you argue completely against their complete worldview and come with facts, even if they are complete facts you can't argue against, they will still not come to the conclusion to accept these things, because they are so emotionally involved and so personally attacked about these things that they will always be against this, and thus it's really only a waste of time most of the times you argue with 100%. People like this, and brings you nowhere, which it's not really helpful for you.
100%. It's and that's most people. 100% most. It's almost like 95 to 99% of people. It's crazy. And even with like objective people, as I said, people are not always in that objective mode, kind of. And so even with them, if you go into a discussion like this or whatever, it's very smart to in the beginning state, okay, we want to leave emotion out of this. We try to be as objective as possible, because my goal is not to be better than you, to be more right than you. My goal is to find out the truth, and I hope the same goes for you. And only on that basis we can argue and discuss a certain thing. And I think stating that in the beginning is extremely powerful and might even work on emotional people. But as you said, most people will value or evaluate a attack on just a belief system or on certain values as an attack towards themselves personally, and then they go from this objective level completely to the emotional level. And on the emotional level, you can forget facts and you can forget objective, whatever, like pack that shit together and just fuck off. Like on the emotional level, it's purely emotional, and their logic doesn't necessarily come into play. So
So, how do you think can you change your realities? Not really talking about objectives to always be objective, but if you have a reality and a mindset, a set of values and morals, how can you change this reality into another one?
I think the first thing is always being aware, as you said, being aware and kind of having this growth mindset. I think it's important to kind of be in the state of growing, that you're always willing to grow. And I think that's basically the basis, the foundation. And then it's basically just knowledge and what you perceive as right and wrong, and experiences you make probably as well. And I think first of all comes like knowledge, and knowledge is not there to knowledge is there for action. Not the purpose of knowledge is not knowledge itself, it's action. And so I think that was a quote from somebody. I've read that on Instagram the other day, which is very cool. But I feel like first of all comes knowledge that a certain thing might be different than you think. And then it's action and experiences you build. And the more you kind of dive into this topic, and the more you kind of challenge your core beliefs, and the more you experience, the more they change. And so, over time, basically, your perception of reality will be different. It won't just happen this day to the other. It will be a long process, which will be accompanied by experiences and action and repeated thoughts that go deeper and deeper and explore different aspects. And therefore, over time, I think you can change your perception of reality. Yeah. What do you think?
I completely agree with this. And I would just like to add something. So Robert Greene calls this the dimensional mind. And you should always try to get this dimensional mind. So oftentimes in our childhood, we are extremely open and open to new ideas, want to test different things, are creative. And over time, we grow up, learn different things, learn different techniques and way of doing things. And then our mind is kind of unopen. We have our own way of doing things. And if someone else comes and does things completely different, we are often not open to these things. And then we are also not open to new ideas. And what we should try to adapt is this dimensional mind. It's kind of an mix between these two. So we have the knowledge from the unopen mind and the experiences and stuff like this, but also the openness from the open mind in our childhood. And when we are open to new things, we can also challenge the way we do things now and think about things now. And then it comes back to the things you said. We can change our beliefs, we can get new knowledge and try to learn other things, and then try to take action, and over time then change our realities.
Yeah, I think that's it. What's so interesting for me is how different realities truly are. Like people, and I think we can't really comprehend this because we don't really see the other realities,
Yes.
But I think we both have gone through quite significant reality changes as well. I mean, back in the days where we just played video games and everything, my reality was so different. I actually thought that the life of every single teenager out there would be just playing video games and watching YouTube videos the entire day and doing nothing else. And I was convinced of that. I was convinced. And I was shocked when I found out that was not the case and other people were having girlfriends, for example. My reality was so fucked. And as I said, it's very hard to truly grasp how different our realities actually are. And so that's so interesting. And one thing I want to ask you here is, and that's a very tough question. Do you think you can think of any like topics, beliefs, or values, whatever, right now that might be wrong or that will change 100% in the future? And I mean that everything will change slightly for sure, but do you think you're completely wrong about something right now? Is there the slightest chance?
I would say completely.
Yeah.
But I would first have to think about it.
Yeah, sure.
Mm,
I can't think of anything right now as well, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it's just because we are also so subjective about our things, and that we think it's objective and in a good reality. But
Yeah.
we are still growing up, and there are always things that change
Yeah.
in our way of thinking. Oftentimes, it's just reading a book and getting a complete new idea about a thought, and then completely changing your mindset about things. It can happen so quickly.
Yeah,
And
truly.
example I have with the different realities. So just imagine you're sitting in a restaurant and a person is getting their food and it's not the food they ordered. And now they are complaining to the waiter why they got the wrong food. And everyone, there are so different realities that the people can see. The one that got the food can maybe hate now the waiter because they think that he misunderstood something and he could have done his job better. Other people may think that the person could be friendlier and talking about this in a friendlier manner. And then there is the waiter that maybe thinks that the people in the kitchen are in the wrong because they did the wrong thing and he understood everything, and he's getting shouted at for no reason. And there are so different possible ways that people can interpret these situations, and because of these interpretations think about this whole situation different and also about the people different.
Yeah, for sure. Like oftentimes, to truly understand the situation and to determine whether or not you were in the wrong or right in a certain situation, it's all about getting to know every perspective and truly understanding why everybody did what they did. And oftentimes reasons go back way past in time. Like people can do certain things because of 2 years ago you did something else, and you have no clue in this situation that they're doing this because of this back then. And so reality can be so different for different people, and sometimes you truly have to put an effort to kind of try to understand everything, especially if you're talking about like serious arguments, for example, between spouses, or with your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. So yeah.
I also think it's often important to assume ignorance before malevolence. So we often think that people are personally attacking us and don't like us because they did different things. And oftentimes the people aren't really realizing this and are just ignorant about the situation. And I think this really helps because you don't feel yourself as a target as much as before.
Exactly. Yeah.
And also with conversations with friends or families or spouses, girlfriends, thinking that they were ignorant about a specific situation is way more helpful than thinking that they were
100%.
malevolent and wanted to harm you. And
100%.
it's more healthier in the relationship in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's also important to always think about.
Yeah. Also, something that I just noticed is, or that I remembered is, people always want to be the one in the right, and they basically every time assume they're the one in the right, and then they kind of defend their position in there. And you got to be a bit more flexible and think to yourself, yeah, maybe I'm in the wrong here, or let's figure this out. I think we're both in the wrong here. What did go wrong? I think that's important, and you sometimes have to embrace very hard conversations. This is one quick side note. Sometimes you gotta embrace very hard conversations, and in the end, you will just feel better. Literally, like it's like a steam pot that like steam builds, and then you just release the pressure, and it's like negative that's a very quick side note right there. I want to just say, with negative emotions and negative thoughts, everything, release them. Like talk about them with friends or whoever you can trust, with family, whatever. And positive emotions, weirdly enough, you should try to, or positive motivations or thoughts or whatever, you should try to keep to yourself, so that the steam, kind of like the force you build up with them, doesn't go just out into nothing, into a conversation. This is, for example, why you shouldn't always talk about your goals, or should talk big about the things you want to do, but you never actually do them. So that's just a quick side note right there. And with all we just said, it's kind of like you have to realize that the world is not just a happy place. It's not just a very simple place. It's complex, sometimes very complex. And as I said, it's sometimes hard. Like facts don't care about your feelings. I think this is actually a quote from Ben Shapiro, if I'm correct. But yeah, and you should always strive for yourself to come as close as possible to reality, even if it hurts. And as we said, try to act out the reality, the truth, the facts, and that's not easy, but by far not. And as I said, in social situations, those are oftentimes very complex, because people are very complex human beings, and they carry with themselves a lot of trauma from the childhood, which is not resolved in most cases. And so, as we said, assume ignorance and not malevolence. Most people don't want to hurt you. They have been hurt themselves, and yeah, try to cope. Try to cope, and yeah, that probably hurts you, but yeah, you got to talk about things. Honestly, you gotta talk more about things.
And as a final note from me, I also think that this makes you more happier to be more open and more objective, since you don't feel attacked immediately when someone has a different opinion, and you're open to new things. You can change yourself, and if you're someone that doesn't have this open mind, you will always try to argument with people that your worldview is the best and this is the reality, and you will always be offended when someone thinks differently. And I think that doesn't really make you happy. So always be open and be objective.
I mean, weirdly enough, exactly, yeah. I mean, weirdly enough, since I accepted that the world is kind of like this, I've gotten happier.
Yes.
As soon as you see that the world is not that easy, and that life is a bit more complex, and people are a bit more complex, and all of a sudden, like, just clicks, and you're like, yeah, sure. Like, I feel like the more you get to the truth, just realizing the truth makes you happier. I don't know. It's weird. It's very weird.
You
and the
also
more you
have
kind
more
of like
under
distance
control.
yourself, 100%, exactly. And the more you kind of like distance yourself, the more you try to cope, with certain things, cope with reality, the more unhappy you get. That's like cognitive dissonance. Is there something you can just throw in there? But yeah, that's it from me, I think. Yeah, I think that sums it up for today's episode. You can always like, subscribe if you think this episode was kind of helpful, or it made you realize something. And yeah, we have linked our separate YouTube channels down in the description below. If you want to watch some stuff about philosophy, check out Finn's channel. He got some very good videos on stoicism and all this kind of stuff. And if you want to know more about improving yourself with like practical advice, for example, testosterone optimization, whatever, you can check out my channel. You can also follow us on Instagram. Those will be plugged down in the description below. And yeah, without further ado, have a great fucking day. Let's crush it, and let's fucking go, man.
See ya.
See ya. Bye.